You may notice that I made some changes here. I did go ahead and I decided to do with white type on this photo. I did with black type yesterday, or actually I changed to blue type, a dark blue type. And I also, in essence, I kind of thought my way through this. I put a caption on the watermelon girl, but I didn't really have a caption on this one. So originally I thought, well, again, I was fighting depth. I had already made the decision to put the main headline, the hammerhead on over the photo. And then anyway, I didn't want to put a caption underneath it. I didn't know what else to say. There's not much to say. I didn't feel like. But then I was wrestling with it. I was going to write the caption, and then I put it on top of the photo in black, in regular size, and I thought, wait a second, maybe this looks better, bigger. So basically, this is a blurb. In essence, that's a blurb now. It is a summary sentence. Of course, it's not in the position of most summary sentences, but it is a sentence. Therefore, that makes it a blurb. So what's underneath Mountain High is a blurb that is also a caption, which is also basically, it's kind of a catch-all. But I think it actually worked pretty well. I had that extra space there. So it's kind of, like I said, kind of in lieu of a caption. It started off as the caption and now became a blurb that fills the same function and adds a different element of graphic impact. This is definitely the sort of thing, by the way, that you'd probably be more likely to do in a magazine. So we'll be getting to, our last project will be a magazine. And so you can kind of think of it that way too. We mentioned in one of the presentations, I think last week, they talked about having blurbs on top of the headline, which you could do, but that's again more of a magazine style. I hardly ever see that in newspapers. But if you were going to do it, it'd probably be this sort of a situation. I could flip this a little bit, make the blurb maybe a little wider, make it 2 lines instead of 3. Above Mountain High, bring Mountain High down. And those are options, particularly when you get to the magazine, that we would consider it more. But this is a demonstration of options that you have with your headlines. You need the right photo to do it with. You can't just take any photo and do this. But this happens to be a good photo for, since I have so much blue sky, and so depending on how much I wanted to crop out, I can use that blue sky for background for the headline, or for blurbs, or for whatever else I want to use. So I like the way that turned out. Meanwhile, I'm still a little bit not sure I like the way the graphics are right now. I am thinking about maybe bringing this this photo down a little bit, and I'll go up to 100%, and so that would be like bring it down. I don't like, I don't know, I'm not sure that I want to go all the way to the bottom, but I might. As far as positioning goes, I kind of like it. I'm thinking I might like it better on the page, going back to Control 0. Positioning wise, I like it better there for the overall page. It was the page was a little bit top heavy, and so I do like it down there. I don't normally like to put photos at the bottom of a story. I kind of resist that. But in this case, because of the overall layout, it gives us more of the golden triangle. And so I think I will take it down to there. I need to give it a caption. I haven't done that yet. But I think I'm going to take it down towards the bottom of that story, and so we get more of the golden triangle. Meanwhile, we have a lot of gray over in the lower left, and this is a good place for me to do a shadow box, I think. So I'm going to, again, go down to Control 1 and 100%, and go down to this area. we don't have room up here to do very much, although we could, I thought about, in fact, before I did this, move this photo, I thought about putting a half-column mug right in here of that runner. But now that I brought that down, I don't need to, although it is another option. If I were to move that back up and bring the photo down here, but then I'd feel like I have to move this over. Anyway, options, options, options. So, going back down here, I want to go ahead and do a pullout quote. So first off, I need to find a quote that I like. I see I have let me get rid of some extra space here that the writer put in. But I think maybe the quote might not be. I only see one direct quote in the start of this, and it's right at the very start, at the paragraph 2. So I think maybe the first thing we're going to do is again see what else I have in the story, and maybe find a pullout quote from page 2. That's not generally you'd want to pull out quote from the same page from the material on that page. Not absolutely a requirement, but that'd be more typical, let me put it that way. Okay, I'm going to bring in the pullout quote, the extra box, go to the linking tool, click here, and click over here so I can see what I have here to work with. There's not a lot of direct quotes in this at all, so it's which actually I could demonstrate something else instead of that, and that is you can also do a blurb in the middle of your story. So if you don't have a good direct quote, my preference is usually to do pull-out quotes. I think almost 100% of the time, if I'm going to do a shadow box or something, I use a pull-out quote. But there just aren't very many pull-out quotes here. There are not many quotes, period. And the one on the second page isn't a very good quote. On the first page, maybe there's something there that could be used. So I'll do a pull-out quote first, I guess. I'm seeing maybe the last sentence or so. Saying the Kazakhstan racer was injured. Oh, I was looking at this one though anyway. I'm going to pull this one here. So you don't actually cut it out, you just copy it. And now I need do another text box here, and I'm going to do it it may not let me actually do it right here in the middle. So I may have to start it out here, and then I'll move it up there. Now this box is a little bit in the way, but I'll go ahead and just do a box in here about what I think it's going to be, and I'll hit a Control-C on my keyboard to paste it in. I'm going to, I will put in the name of the person in a second. I need to go get it, but first off, I'll deal with the quote itself, and I will make this bigger and italics, and probably too big. You're probably going to be at least 14 point. That's a pretty good size for this. In fact, that's probably fairly standard, and you see some bigger, but I think for our purposes, this is about right. I'm going to then go back in here, and I need to get the name of the person is up here someplace. Ansagan, Arai Ansagan. I'll put the name in here, space, Control-V again. The second line is typically flush right, and so I'll go up here and tell it go to the right. And you see it's a different size, and so this is still probably 10 point, because that's the way it was, it is. So this is 10 point, this is about the right contrast. You have like a 10 point name, attribution on it, you could say. Usually has a dash or hyphen to the left of it. Your main, or your text itself, the quote is 14 point is a good size. Doesn't have to be exactly 14. You can monkey with that to make it fit what you want to do, but about 14. This is still, this is up here is still justified, and I think it looks, let me look at, usually I think they make it flush left. They take off the justification. It didn't look too bad justified in this case, but it can look quite bad when you're trying to play with the pullout quote and start breaking at funny places, get too much space between words. And so I would go flush left on that typically. So once you have it, now there's a couple of options, but I think I'm going to try doing it in a way I don't usually do it. And let's if I can. Okay, so we've got I think, okay, we've got the drop shadow over here. So you see you have your text, you have your frame, you have your runaround, spacing and alignment. I haven't really looked at that, whether this is, I'm not seeing something there I want to use, but anyway, the shadow box I did want to use. So I want to give it some shadow box, so I'm going to apply the drop shadow. Now this is applying it to the text, and I really want it to be on the box, although it seems to apply to both. And that I'm not, that may be where I need to go with a separate box, but I'm going to see if I can, what does this do? This is important, run around the drop shadow. So if you have drop shadow on the outside, you want to run about, but it's not, we're not getting shadow on the outside. There's some other things like distance you can play with. What you're seeing is this, so the shadow's leaving the text a little bit, it's moving a little bit. Let me move it up to 2. Well, I got to do this up here, I guess. Put this back to the bottom. I know I got the top anyway. I didn't put it up there. Okay, so what I want to do. I'm going to take off, first off, I'm going to move the shadow back. Oh, I know what I want to do. I want to go up to the view and go to 200%, so you can see it better. Okay, so this shadow is moving away from the text. If you want shadow in your text, which sometimes I do, but in this case, I'm really more interested in the box itself. This is the drop shadow skew. We'll see what that does. So that's going, that's kind of a weird effect. I'm not sure I like that one at all. This one is the drop shadow angle. So which way is the sun coming from, basically. So you can actually have the sun coming from below instead of above, sort of thing. We already try that one. Scale, different. Okay, that one's going just straight down. opacity. Of course, that's whether you can see through it or not, so forth. Let's see what happens when we play with that a little bit. And from what I've seen, you can't really, this has more effect when you actually, well, you see the effect here, but you can see it more when you print it. Here at this large level, you can see it better. Sometimes when you're, especially if you're out at 100% or less, you can't really see the difference here in the opacity. But when I bring it down here now, you see it's almost disappeared altogether. So if you're going to bother to have it, I would think that you'd want it at least up in the 75% range. This allows you to change color, but I don't know. I don't know when you'd want to change color. It's not something I have ever used or wanted to use, because shadow doesn't turn in color. You know, how many blue shadows have you seen in your life? That doesn't seem right. I'm not sure what the inherent, when I turned off the inherent opacity, I'm going to turn it back on and see if I can see any difference. Multiple drop, multiple shadow, or inherent opacity. I'm not sure what that's supposed to do. But going back to let's see if I click on the frame. That doesn't. We do have some things we can do with the frame. Let's see what happens when we, first off, we need it, we're at 0%, so we have to give it some percent here. So we'll go to 1%. And, okay, that was one of my problems. So we didn't see the shadow because I didn't have it on a percent. If you can't see the line, you can't see a shadow. Okay, so that was my fault. It seems like there ought to be a way not to have shadow in your words. And I think if we did a totally different frame, if I go to a rectangular frame, I think we can do that. And let's see what options that gives us. That also has shadow. And so, again, I want to let me go up, click on that with the, we need to click on, okay, so we now can bring that up and see what we're getting. We're not getting it on the box. And that part I do not understand yet is why item knocks out drop shadows. What does that do? I don't see it. It just doesn't seem to, I'm sure there must be a way to do this, but I am not at, we used to just do the drop shadow on the box and not on the text, and I've not been able to separate them so far in my work. And I mean, it's telling us we have a shadow here, but there's no shadow. Let me go put some tint in the inside of that box. I'm going to go up to modify up here and see if I can do something up here. So I right click to go to modify. It has no color inside the box right now. Oh no, well, let's see what we have when I do that. No, that's still the outside. Okay, no, it is inside. Okay, so, and now it does have a shadow box. Okay, so we need something, apparently need something on the inside before it will give us a shadow. So that seems to be the key. So I can probably do white and it'll still keep the shadow. Apply again, yeah. Okay, so we solved that problem. So the box, even the graphic box, will not give us a shadow until we give it content. And there's an empty box is not the same as a white box. So you need to understand the difference. An empty box is not the same as a white box. It looks the same originally, but it does not consider it the same. And I know in the old PageMaker and stuff, we had to fight with that a little bit. So if we want a shadow box or a shadow just on the box, it appears that we need to, well, let me try something else now. I hit OK on that, but I'm going to go back to this box again. And I'm going to right click on that and see if I really needed to do that. I'm going to modify, and we'll do the same thing here. And now we'll put white. And see if there's a way to do it separately. Okay, so that just took the shadow off the words and put it on the, so I did not have to do the other. I could do it here as long as we had to start off by putting white in that box. So a text box can be made into a graphic box. We need to put white, we need to put a color inside of it. And by the way, it doesn't have to be white. You might want that box to be a different color. So you might want to, what I usually do if I'm going to put a color in a box is I try to match a color that's already in the photo, such as the blue at the top of the page. And I'm going to come back to that. First off, I want to, we need to get the text away from the edges of the box. And so let's go to the, let me see if we do it in here. Okay, over here on the far right, I believe this is where we're going to do it. So I need to move it away from the left side. It doesn't seem to be showing up here. I need to, what do I need to do to make it do that? Let me go to the, maybe paragraph. No. Okay, over here in the far left with paragraph, maybe this will do it. Yeah. Okay, so if you go to paragraph, and you may have to do it on the right side too, but it lets you do it separately. The right side is kind of naturally giving us some extra space here. So we may not have to do the right side, but the left side we have to do is touching the box. We need to get it away from the box. So we have the text. We can also, let's see if this will bring it down a little bit. I've had trouble with this with InDesign too, coming down within a shadow box. It says you can bring it down, but it's resisted it for some reason, and I don't know why. It doesn't like giving you extra space at the top, even though it says it's giving it to you. In the box it says it's giving you space at the top, but you have to have a second paragraph in order to do it. So what I've had to do sometimes is actually create a separate paragraph up here. This is what I used to have to do with InDesign. Put in a space, and empty space is a type size. And so I would go to the text mode, and here it's 14 point. I could make that empty space there 6 point, or 7 point is what's allowed here. But I can go 6 point also if I want to. So I've had to put an enter there, select that empty space, and resize that to give it extra space at the top. I should not have to do that, I don't think. But in both InDesign and in Quark, when I tell it to give space above the paragraph, it doesn't give me space when it's when there is no paragraph above it, basically. It won't do it. So I don't know that we should have to do that, but we're doing that. I see we're also touching on the right side here. We are touching here. This one is going to have to I'll go to paragraph again, and this one would be the bottom one. I need to increase from the right side. I didn't have to do that with the text because it just naturally broke when I had a flush left. It still naturally broke there, and so that was okay. Okay, so I have this. I'm going to have to put a wraparound on it for sure, run around as they call it. So I'm going to click run around before I even go, and I will say item. That again makes it, gives it that ability. And before I actually give it any, well, maybe I'll give it a little bit of width here on the left and right. Particularly, you almost always need it at least 3 points on the left and right. I'll go 3 points for now. I'm going to go back up to 0. And why is they're not getting that? And I'm going to drag this box up here into this space here is where I wanted it. So now I'll go back to 1 where I can see it, what it's doing. So here's the shadow box in the middle of the text here. I think actually the point size on the box around, I gave it a 1. It should probably be a half. I'm going to go ahead and change the line itself if I can. I'm going to go to the frame, and I put it at 1. I think it'll look better if the box itself is at 1/2 and still have the shadow. I might want a deeper shadow. Now that we have the shadow showing, we can increase the shadow a little bit. That's already at 100% opacity. We can try some different, see what this does. So we have some different options here. I'm going to go ahead and just go with darken. I think that so far from what I've seen is my preference. So something like that. I may have to, it looks like the right side is a little bit too tight to it, and maybe the left side too. I'm going to select those both and go back to the runaround and increase closer to 6. Of course, as you do this sort of stuff, this is one reason why you have to link to your text box that is on page 2. But if you decide to do this last minute, suddenly lines are starting to move around, and you want that extra, you want the lines that kick over to the page 2 to kick. And if they're not linked, they won't kick. So I mentioned also you can colorize this. I'm going to go ahead and go to modify again. And instead of now the frame itself, or box, I guess, the inside of the box is white now, but I wanted it to be a little bit more like that color at the top of the page. I might take a dark blue. Let's see what happens when I do that. I think you have to play with opacity here. So you see you have a couple of options here. One is to make your text white. So that will be different if you do that. Or you can increase the opacity, or decrease the opacity, I mean. So currently it's 100. So we bring that down. But it's still kind of hard to read if you're having, if I chose a dark color. So even opacity doesn't help a whole lot when you have a real dark color. It's not going to change its color. So probably with this one, it'd be best to make the text. Okay, I'll hit OK. Oops. Okay. Let me go back to that because I didn't hit apply, so I wasn't seeing what I was doing here. Okay, I'm going to go back to opacity and bring that back up. Hit apply. Try to see a little bit what it's doing here a little bit differently. Yeah, anyway, a little different. Go back, I still think I need to make that white text, so I'll go inside and click Control A, select all of that, and we will go back to our text, and now we'll turn our text white. Oops, so it's not stroke. We can the boxes start fighting each other a little bit. I need to make sure this is towards the front, it's already in the back, already in the front, but it was fighting for some reason. Now I have that selected though, all I do is just even select it. Okay, so where's the color at? Oh. I thought that's what I changed before, but, yeah, oops. Nah. Okay, so I was going for white. Okay, so I might need to darken fooling around, I hit the style copy and couldn't get rid of it. Okay, so we have white now and black, so you can read it. I might want to darken up the name or make it a little bigger. That's a little bit hard to read as white text over dark, over blue. Going out to Control 0. Now you see, as I said, what I find I'm bad at colors. I know that. But what I found is that if I was using some colors that just didn't go well, and nobody taught me how to use colors. But as I suggested a second ago, what I found was that when I chose colors that were already on the page, such as blue, because there's lots of blue on the page, it looked better. If I chose colors that were not on the page, it would stand out and look odd. The best way if I chose green right now, it would look odd, because there's no green on that page. And so, again, this is not something anybody taught me, but I just found it from my own life experience at making pages I didn't like, and finally decided that was the key, was to find colors on the page that already existed, already fairly dominant, and if I was going to make a box like this, I would make that box a color that was compatible with the other colors already there. Now, one thing you can do, and this is a little bit darker color than I wanted, so let me play one more game with it a little bit. I go on there again, and let's open the color palette. The color palette gives us a few more options. So we want to turn on the color palette. And one of the options it gives us here is the kind of like in Photoshop, has the color picker. And so if I click on the color picker, and I'm going to go back to Control 0 so I can see what I want. And I go back up here, I look in this picture and say, okay, what in this picture, which color do I want? Do I want this color up here? So I can create a color that's not that I'm just guessing at from or an established color. I'm choosing a color that does match a color in the picture. So I'm going to go ahead and take this darker blue from this picture up here. That's not showing a dark blue, that's showing a black for some reason. Why is it showing black? Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe the headline might be bothering it. I'm going to try to go above it again. Try it again. Okay, that's getting the color I wanted. Okay, so I now have a new color that I just got from a picture. So now to do exactly what I wanted to do, I wanted to match the box to a color in a picture. The color picker is the best way to go, because now it's going to give me exactly the color in the picture. And so now that I have that, now I can go back down here, and I believe it. Trying to think, I have to tell me what the number is. I think I have to. How do I save this now? I'm trying to remember. Hit a plus, I think. And now that may be where I needed to use the picker at that point. But it gives me the formula here, by the way. When it was showing me, oh, here's the plus over here. Let me cancel this and hit the plus here. Okay, so that gave me the color I wanted, or allows me to save this color. I don't think that's the name I want to have, so I might say sky blue or something. Since I got it from a sky, so I'll say sky blue. And I will save that. And so now I have a sky blue color down here someplace, sky blue. And I can go back to my box again. And now, rather than this color of blue, I can go to sky blue. Up here, by the way, you can choose between the frame and the background. So actually, it's the background that I'm after. And now I can go to the sky blue. It's now dark blue, currently dark blue, but I want to go to that sky blue that I just chose. I may also want to change the color of the line, by the way. I didn't really think about that. I sometimes ignore that. I'm going to go ahead and choose the frame. The frame is currently black. I want to go and make that also make that sky blue also. So it kind of disappears into the background a little bit. And I think I have what I want here. So I have a shadow box. I put white text into it, the contrast with the color background. I use the color picker to choose a color that's already in a photo, which is that sky blue photo, that sky blue color I just created. We see as we look at the overall page, now we have a graphic element in the lower left that we didn't have before. So we have plenty of art in that page now. I did move the nariz picture down to make it more of a triangle. I think that looks better. The shadow box breaks up the gray in the lower left. And now we have 5 pieces of art on there. I have not, what I have not done, because I've been thinking about other stuff, I haven't done all the subheadlines. I'll probably add subheadlines. That'll probably cause me, I don't know, I may not do a subheadline for that bottom story, because I've got the shadow box there, which, as I mentioned, I started to mention before, or did mention, but didn't clarify perhaps, it does not have to be a pullout quote. It can be a blurb, and a blurb is in essence a summary of the story, so you just pull out something from the story and just talk about it in that shadow box instead of a pullout quote. My preference has always been a pullout quote if I find one that's decent at all. So that's what I've done, is use the pullout quote, but it doesn't have to be. It could be, well, like the blurb I put up under Mountain High, something like that could be in a shadow box instead. And again, reminding you, let me go up there and show you what I wrote there, just to remind you of that. So up there, the blurb I wrote up there was QMF students enjoy a revitalizing escape into the mountains. That could be in a shadow box instead of, in this case, over the photo. Same thing. So your shadow box, if you're going to use that as a graphic device, can be a pull-out quote, can be a blurb, can be color, can be shadowed. We've kind of, sorry, I kind of experimented with you today because I've done it a little bit before, but I wasn't sure about some things. So let me review what we did find out today. In fact, let me take a jump over, let me pull this jump and put it on page 2. Okay, so I'm going to put this jump on page 2 and put a shot and redo that shadow box over here. So I'm going to blow that up and remind us also what I'm expecting out of your jumps. Jumps are to have their own headline, and they are to be a new headline. See, this is the story about the hiking. There's not really a real good photo with it, but if I were desperate for page 2, let me go back and let me go ahead and put in a photo. I believe there's another photo. I believe it's people just grinning at a camera, if I remember right. Let me go back there and find it. So under I guess it's just this picture, well, not a great picture, but I'm going to use it anyway for now for our purposes here. So Hiker 352. I'm going to hit Control-0 again, bring this down, put in the picture first. I want it to be I think I'm going to go 3 columns on this. And bring it in. I use Control-E. I don't know why it's not coming in with a double click. Another idiosyncrasy of it. I'll go with this one instead. And hit the scale picture to box. And I think I will go ahead and bring it wider, but I'll also crop it from the top a little bit. I think I will bring it up. And click away. I'll bring the text box up here and tell it I want it to be, excuse me, the text, I want it to be 2 columns, yeah, I'll go 2 columns and 3. Go back up here and put in I don't think that's the same girl as the other one, is it? So I'm not sure who this is. Maybe it is. I'm gonna say it is anyway. I'm not sure. I'm gonna copy that caption, and come back down, and so I don't actually need a caption box because I just copied one. So I'm going to bring this one down to be my headline first off. I'm going to hit Control V, and where'd that go? Go to Control 0, see if I can. Okay, try that again. Control C and Control V. There it is here. And Control 1. Do try to see, we've got go a little bit wider in the photo too to match. Do try to make sure your captions are at least this long. A little bit better, a little bit longer would be better. Obviously, I don't want to say exactly the same thing I said on the front page. So this isn't the mountains. This is the there's a canyon. We have a caption there. I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm going to try to expedite this a little bit. So I'm going to skip the headline for the moment and go to the shadow box, which is what I was trying to talk about. So to review the shadow box, I'm going to draw one in here. So we're going to do it with a text box this time. We know we've learned that we can do that for sure. Sometimes you have to start it outside of the of another text frame. So I'm just going to do it out to the side. I can bring it in immediately if I want to, especially if I once I put run around on it. But the other thing I can do that we learned we have to do anyway if we're going to do this shadow box is to put color inside of it. And so with the color palette open, I'm going to choose here as you have the frame, you have the background. This is the background we're trying to worry about, although I do need to do the frame also. So I'm going to do the frame first, and the frame I'm going to do, let's stay at the same colors. I'll go, well, for now, I'm just going to, I'll choose black for the back, or the sky blue for the color, the line right now. I'll go to the background, and for now I'll do sky blue, but I'm going to, I think, change the color a little bit later. So we have the sky blue again from the color palette. We're doing it this time. We're going to see what else we have over here also within this. Okay. So we'll go, and we can go ahead and bring this. We didn't do the runaround yet, but I'll put it over here anyway. So we have a text box here that now has color in it and around it. It doesn't have any words in it yet, but it does have the rest. And we're going to tell it to do a runaround first off. We need a runaround. And we need to go over here where it says none. It's kind of blocking it over here, but we need to change that to item for the runaround to work. And then we need to give it some runaround. 6 seems to be about the right number to get the text around the outside, away from the box. So we've got up to 6-point wraparound, runaround, whatever you call it. We want the shadow, so we'll turn on the shadow, and then up comes some possibilities here. Actually, we don't see any shadow yet. So, well, I'm going to go. Oh, I don't. Oh, here, that's where I got screwed up before. Is my video recording is right on top of the box I have to click to. So I'm going to drag this over, and if I can I? Quark doesn't like to be anything less than full size here. Okay, I've got my click here, so now I do have, I click the shadow box here. You've got to have it here before you can do anything else anyplace else. And so now I can go back to full size, and the video isn't bothering it now. So we have some shadow now that we can play with. This is the blur. We can increase the blur. We can increase, now this is the distance. I don't really like, well, maybe with this, maybe I do want distance. Now, as we make distance with just the box, I didn't like distance with the words. With the box, I like the distance. So we'll increase the distance. That makes it a little bit bigger and bolder. Gives us more shadow. And so we have that, but we may also have to, it says item knocks out drop shadow, or run around drop shadow. Okay, so I'm going to click on the run around drop shadow. That actually is too far away now. So I will go back to the runaround and reduce the right. See, boy, even I do it to 0, it knocks it out quite a ways. Yeah, I'm not sure I even want to use that. It pushes the text so far away. I'm not sure I like that. So I'm going to increase the runaround here and take it off of the automatic runaround. I'll control it here instead. And so with the runaround tool, I will go even up to 8, 10, whatever I have to do to get it a little bit out, but not as far as the automatic did. That was too far. Okay, so now we can actually bring in the pullout quote. We have the shadow box. It is already a text frame, but we just didn't put any text in it yet. Got some other problems still that I have, again, some extra spaces in here. Somebody just manually put in spaces in some places here. I gotta get rid of, but that's, okay, in the mountains, people are made to be free, whatever. That's a nice pull-out quote. Not sure who he is. Says he says. So the other guy we've been quoting is a she. Must be Sultan Beck. Here's whatever. I'll have to find his first name someplace. It's a good quote. It's kind of long. So I'm just going to take the first part of it, copy the first part, and click into here. It's resisting again, so I'm going to have to go and click on this, and now maybe be able to get it in there. It is. So I'll go ahead and put the quote in quote mark. Again, I'm going to bring this up to at least 14 point. And so now I need to go to the text to go to 14 point. See if that's big enough. I might even go bigger. I can obviously make the shadow box smaller. This goes up to 18, I believe, yeah. That's okay. I need some interior. I think that's under frame. No, it's not under frame. It must be the... Okay, where is it? Paragraph? Paragraph. So I need to indent. It's on the far left side here. I need to bring the text in off of the inside of the box. So I can bring it off the left a little bit, bring it off the right a little bit. As I mentioned, for some reason, it fights us at the top. That's a little bit too tight at the top. I'm going to hit Enter. Oops. And I'm going to select that empty paragraph there. And I'm going to tell it under text to be 7 point. So I'm actually, again, I'm sizing an empty paragraph, but it's the only way I could do it to get it off the top without doing a second box. I'm going to go ahead and make this flush left. I didn't do that before. I needed to do that. Go to paragraph again and go flush left. Oops. It changed where I was in. And you get into the box again, and again it's resisting, so I'll click on that box, and once I do that, then it lets me back in again. So I'll go in and go flush left on the text, hit Enter, and I want to do the name line. I have the last name here is Abakarov. I need to find his first name, which appears to must be in the front page, so I have to go up to the front page and find it. Abakarov. There it is down there. Sultan Abakarov. So hit Control C on that, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Control 0 and then go back down to page 2 a little faster, I think. And Control 1 down there, and paste in Abakarov's name. That should probably be all 10 point. I'll go back to text and tell it 10 point. And we want to go flush right on this. That needs to go hit the paragraph and hit flush right. We can shorten the box a little bit. As I said, you don't have to make things fill out the box absolutely. Now I can go ahead and bring up, I still need to put in jump lines and stuff, so I need to do some more work on this page, but anyway, so that was just to summarize again how to do that shadow box. Now here on this page I don't have blue, so let me go back and show that again too. So I'm going to go to Control 1 where I can see and try to move it to where I can see both this and a piece of this. Here we have a nice brown color, kind of odd color but it's the dominant color in that photo. So I'm going to go back to the color palette, And I'm going to, again, hit the picker, and I'm going to choose this brown color here. Kind of an odd color, but it's the dominant color of that photo, and if I want to keep my philosophy, I'm going to say desert brown. I don't know. She's out in the desert part of the country now. And hit OK. And now I'm going to go up and choose desert brown as my color for my box. So if I go out of that now and I go back to where you can see it a little differently maybe, I think that actually makes a pretty nice color. Again, so I would recommend, again, I was quite a ways. When I first started my career, we only had black and white. We didn't use color hardly ever. It was very, very expensive. You sometimes have to spend, and this is in old money, a couple $100 to put color on your newspaper. Maybe $50 for one color, but to have full color, at least a couple $100 at least, and maybe more. And so we just didn't use color no newspaper used color very much when I first started the career, but then it got cheaper and cheaper. And so now it's universally used because it's for both the impact of it, but also the price of it has come down. Maybe because presses use it, can do it easier. I don't really know why they reduced the color cost, but we just didn't use it very much. So when I started using a little bit of color, I had no idea what I was doing. By the way, I do see that I also need to bring the text down below it too. We have it adequately to the left, adequately to the right. We don't have it adequately to the bottom. So I will have to give it some, but while I'm doing that, so I need the be the wraparound, excuse me. So I need to put some above below it. There. So I didn't know how to use color. We had no training at the university in color, and probably I should put this white text again. Anyway, but so as I said, I don't remember anybody telling me, hey, stupid, you should be using colors in the photos. I don't know how I came up with the idea. But anyway, it finally occurred to me that, and maybe I did hear it from somebody else, I have no recollection anymore, but that the best way to choose a color on a page is to find the dominant color in a photo. And that has worked for me very well since then. And even though that's a very odd color, that is the dominant color in this photo. Not one you're going to use all the time, but so you can kill it later if you decide you never want to use that color again. But for our purposes today, I think it works well. So I think I've gone through how to do the shadow box, how to do the pullout quote twice, if you've been listening. And I will save this video under how to do pullout quotes, something like that, something real obvious. So you can refer to it again in the future. So we're out of time. There's a lot of time on one subject, but it's one of those things that most people don't know how to do, but it's a very valuable tool in creating another graphic. That's what the subject of today's lesson is graphics. Another graphic when you don't have a graphic, basically. When you don't have a good photo and you need to break up the gray, a shadow box is good, a color shadow box is better. So knowing how to do it is important. And so that's the subject, the main subject of my tutorial today is how to do that shadow box. The projection doesn't show as well as on the monitor, but well, maybe it does a little better when we blow it up a little better. But now you see that's a little darker than it is on the screen. Probably more realistic of what it is maybe in the print. The projection is darker as well. One of the things that Quark trainer was saying is that you have to make your photos lighter than you think you should because they will print darker. And at the time I thought, that's basically they project darker too. Project darker and they print darker. So not that you can take a projector around with you all the time, but at least for my purposes I can say, okay, that may be a little dark. And so maybe I need to lighten, go back into OpenView and lighten that photo a little bit. Let me see. Was that one? I'm trying to remember now whether that's one of the things you can do in Modify. I don't. Yeah, I think I've got to go to OpenView or Photoshop to lighten that up a little bit. I don't see. Opacity wouldn't really quite be it. So I think I'm going to do that outside of Quark. But like I say, on the monitor it looks fine, and here it looks dark, and so does the shadow box. So. You just be aware that I hadn't thought about it before, but that the Quark trainer did point out that you need to make your photos maybe a little lighter than you think you should. They look one way on the monitor, and they look a little differently when they print. And so the difference is about what I'm seeing, I think, between what I see in the monitor now and what I see in the projector. Okay, any questions? I see most people got their project in. There were about 10 out of 10 people that have not gotten their project into the system yet. There'll be some penalty for being late, but if by chance you didn't get it in, I believe the system still lets you. It just tells me how late you are. It doesn't stop you from uploading. It just tells me this person is 5 hours late or 20 hours late or however many hours late. And so I can deduct if I choose to do so.